Hey!
Hello, we're over here. Here he comes.
Oh, he looks very much like Tom.
Oh no! All right.
Oh yeah, we're basically the same person. I could go be the clam or something.
Tuna, if you can scoot more toward me, and then Lucas,
Okay.
if we can have you kind of facing right in front of the yellow flag here.
Okay.
Oh wow, we really are twins.
Yeah,
That's right. And then face the rock by the base
if you
of
see the camera,
bridge.
yeah.
Yeah. Great.
What's
Cool.
up, man?
Hey there. Nice
Welcome.
to meet y'all.
How are you?
Yeah. Good. How about you guys?
Excellent. And I love
Very
your game.
excited.
So I'm like starstruck, even though I can't really see you.
This
This has been my favorite game for the last month and 2 months at least.
Yeah.
Like I've not
That's
stopped
awesome.
playing it.
Oh yeah. Are you guys all playing on PlayStation?
Yep.
Yeah, sort of. Tom's PlayStation right now is the camera, although it's invisible because he doesn't have it on, and he's in his Oculus so that he can capture this in the PlayStation.
Oh, okay.
So we're
cool.
using my
Gotcha.
PSVR as the camera right now, but when we play, I'm using that. So
Gotcha.
the voice, real quick, the voice that has joined us for people that are watching, and if you're listening, go watch. Lucas Martell is the creator of Walkabout Mini Golf, and he's here in Walkabout Mini Golf for episode 400 of the Unlocked Podcast. So, Lucas, thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate
thanks for having me.
These guys probably
This
have a
is
ton of questions, so I'm going to let them rip.
Okay. Yeah, go for it.
Well, so I mean, first of all, Alex and I, and this is in a year that people are saying is maybe the best year in video game history, or up there. This is our game of the year. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm playing Alan Wake right now. You know, we've played Zelda, Star Wars, Spider-Man, like all big games. But this is by far the best game I think I've played this year. It's one of my favorite games of all time. It's pretty incredible what you've created.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I have to admit, I never expected mini golf to kind of be the thing, but it feels like that's what everyone else says too, so I'm kind of okay to be like that,
Dude,
that
it's the
game that
thing.
was like, no, trust me, like, just try it. I know it's
the
mini
thing.
golf, but you'll get there, yeah.
It's so good, man. I mean, Chris and I also bought the Hello Real Club.
Yep.
It's
Oh,
got
yeah,
all
I got
our
it.
controllers, which is incredible, and it really feels like I'm holding the club. And it really,
Yeah.
like, when we are on these courses, like, it just, like, I'm hanging out with my bud. Like, you've created this space where I can just, like, hang out with my friend who lives in LA. I'm in New York. And we can just hang out for an hour every day on our lunch breaks, teeing off on some
we have tea
courses and having a great time. So thank you for that. It's absolutely awesome.
It's sort of cliche because you're a lawyer, and we take our lunch
am.
breaks and have tea time.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
No,
go ahead, Tom. No,
I was
go
going
ahead,
to
Tom.
ask you. You talk about like if you didn't think like mini golf would be the thing. I think the thing that we can all agree on is that it's not just about the mini golf. It's the world. It's the collectible balls. Like there's so many elements to it. As you were developing the game, like how much were you realizing like, oh, to like raise this above the bar, like we need to add this stuff, or was it from the jump you were like we need to have all this stuff?
So the history of this game, I'll just give you like the quick 30-second version, is that it was really sort of a pandemic project for me. So it was mostly a solo project, and when it launched, it only had the first 4 courses. We had the lost balls or something that was added, and there was not even a settings menu. And this is the original. This would have been 2020. It launched in September on Quest 1, like 2 weeks before the Quest 2 came out. So pretty much everything, like all the Fox Hunts, even all this Welcome Island, none of that existed. It was basically just 4 courses. It had multiplayer, but even multiplayer was a late add. That's something that that Oculus at the time was really pushing for, because there was only there weren't a lot of people with headsets at the time, so they were pushing, no, you've got to do multiplayer, and I was like, fine, I'll do multiplayer, because I didn't know that the Quest 2 was coming, and had no idea that until you even got in. At that time, no one realized how VR socially, like how much of a difference that made, because you do kind of have to be in there with people to really get that sense of presence. So, some of it was from luck, but also there was a lot of, failed projects before that, and, spending, a long, long time getting other projects going, and some of them went and some of them didn't. So, yeah, you know, you make 10, and then one of them is finally hits. So
the social aspect you talked about is like the inspiration for this episode, because so many times we play golf, and with the very little but very powerful kind of like movements of the face and everything, we're looking at each other and we're like, oh my god, it's like I'm looking at you, despite it being like a polygonal thing, and it's just the mouth opening, but it feels like your mannerisms are coming through, and like we're here because of that. So, like it's really cool. Really
it's amazing how much you even get just with the head motions, and I mean, the dirty trick is that we're not even like, we have no way of tracking the mouth, so all it is basically just like volume sort of making the lip flaps up and down. But it's amazing how just you get enough from the head and just seeing where people are looking that, I mean, we've even used we'll sometimes open up a larger room and do our team meetings in here, just because you can get that, like, people can talk over each other and it's not weird like it is on a Zoom call.
Yes.
Totally.
Yes. Mm-hmm. There's the blinking also, it's automated, but at first, because we were just so enamored by everything, we were like, are they using the PlayStation eye tracking to know when we're blinking? Because we were like, everything works so well. But that appears to just be automated, right?
It's just automated, but we so my background and a decent number of the team our background is in animation, and so there's a lot of different things that cause you to blink, like when you turn your head quickly. We did add a few of those things, so there's like certain things that mentally cause your eyes to blink. So we do kind of try to like add a little bit of that, so it's not purely random.
Okay, but you see, that attention to detail is what makes this game awesome. And I think you could see it in the entire game itself, like all the courses, every detail, all the stuff. It's so good. Like, I kind of want to hang out in some of the courses. I wish I could. Like, I'd just be like, these are really cool areas just to hang out in. So how did you design the holes yourself? Did you base them on any like mini golf courses you had seen, or you were just flying off the cuff when you designed the holes?
I mean, pretty much just flying off the cuff and just sort of like what's cool. I mean, I think that we definitely learned really early on that because we're not constrained, like we don't have the safety regulations. You know, you can have a ball flying at, you know, doing a 300-yard drive and not worrying about killing somebody. So there's a lot of that sort of stuff that we realize that we can go bigger. We don't have the space requirements of just like a physical install. So we definitely started pushing further. You know, like the first course is more classic mini golf, but as soon as we get past that first tourist trap course, it's getting into stuff that you could never really do in the real world, but we always wanted to make it feel like it still had a sense of presence, and it still feels like this is a real place that could exist if someone just had millions of dollars that they wanted to build their own private mini golf course.
It really strides that line of like, it feels like impossible to be real, but also like could be. Like somehow it like does both of those things.
Yeah. Actually, and a lot of that is in.
Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and a lot of that is in environment design. It's thinking like, how do rocks break down when they're, as they erode? How do different landscapes form? How would someone actually use this space? Obviously, it's fantastical, but we do spend I know on one of the most recent courses, what was it, Laser Lair? We even went in and it's like, you know what, something just doesn't feel right, and it was like power outlets. Just putting power outlets and putting cords to plug a few things in made it feel like, now it actually feels like an actual functional space. Little details like that go a long ways.
I had a question about, so you press a button and you can go into like big mode and you can see the miniature course. Was that always part of it, or was that something you added? Because that feature is so cool.
I wanted
Not only is it really cool, but the fact that I can watch the miniature versions playing is incredible. So is that always part of it, or did you add that later?
That was one thing that was part of that initial launch. That was
awesome.
Just like, while creating the courses, it's so cool to be able to see everything in VR when you're in that different scale. So knew from the pretty much beginning that, that's a cool way of doing it, and you need to do something for the menu anyways. So in VR, like, use the space that you've already built. Don't try to build up some weird custom void or something like that for your main menu options. Just, go big.
The Laser Lair course. So I'm curious, because were you a part of the team? Like, were you with Mighty Coconut when they did the first game, Lazer Maze? or Lazer Mazer in 2018.
Yeah, so that was also me and Colin Jimenez was the one other person. So I'm actually the founder of Mighty Coconut.
Okay, that's what I. All right,
yeah.
great.
Mm-hmm.
Because Tom and I were at Indiecade and we played that back in 2018.
Yeah.
And then I saw Laser Lair, and I'm like, well, he did Spies in Disguise, and here's this spy level, and it's a laser level. Like, was that partially an inspiration for both of those things?
Yes, definitely. I just love spy stuff. And in fact, the lasers and the laser sounds in Laser Lair were just ripped straight out of Lazer Mazer. So
awesome.
Yeah. So totally just sort of like ripping ourselves off on that one. But I also knew, it's funny because when I pitched the idea to a couple of the other people, they're like, really? Lasers and mini golf? It's like, trust me, lasers is fun. Just
it's
more
so
lasers, you will, yes. Like, and
is that your favorite one? The favorite course that you have? Do you have a favorite?
It's tough because I end up spending so much time on whatever. I'm usually at the very, very beginning and the very, very end. So whatever courses just come out, by the time it comes out, I'm usually sick to death of that one just because it's been like an intensive sort of like an intensive sprint to get that one over the line usually. But yeah, I think that Laser Lair is definitely one. I think that it has some really fun, interesting gameplay that the lasers, just that mechanic allowed for. And yeah, it is a lot of fun to just sort of like, we try to, whenever we do something like that, where we do something different with the mechanics, we like to go back to something that's a bit more traditional, just because a lot of people do like to hang out and just, again, mini golf people aren't entirely there for mini golf. They're there to hang out with people. And so sometimes you want something that's not just that, you don't want every course to be a head scratcher. So,
sure.
But yeah, I think Laser Lair is way up there. So
for Upside Downtown, who came up with that idea and the fact that like when the ball goes on the ceiling, you're playing it still like as if gravity for yourself is real, and it's where other video games would have you probably get the perspective as if you were on the ceiling. So to like have the course where you're hitting it like this instead of, traditionally is a pretty, I think, unique idea. I don't know that I've seen that before.
I think that we played a couple. In fact, I even see that you have the putter from Upside Town there. So, I mean, that was a group effort. It came early on. I did do a fair number of the designs. Like, that's one of those that I love those courses where when we've got a new mechanic, it's a mechanic that's fairly simple, but you can lean into it and do a lot of like interesting stuff with that one mechanic. Like some of my favorite puzzle games are very much like that. It's just like take something simple and then just like build on it, add one little twist, and then build on that. Like Portal is a classic example of just like such a simple idea, but it takes it to just like ridiculous heights. And I felt like that was sort of what we were trying to do with Upside Down. But yeah, there was something that we found that was really fun. There was also something that we tried orienting, and it definitely changes the feel of the course. There's also something that's very unnerving, and you tend to lose your sense of space when you're flipping. You could do it where you would warp to your ball, but there's just also something about seeing light coming in from down below you that has this weird, like, it's not a pleasant sensation, I would want to say almost. And it's something that I think in a regular game, a pancake game, no problem. But in VR, it definitely is more unnerving, and you kind of lose that sense of, we call it the walkaboutness, that sense of like, oh, everything progresses from one hole to the next, and you can see that path. So
cool. So
yeah, we played around with it early on, but it's still something that we might do like a mode at some point down the road. But yeah, that was the plan from the beginning.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
So I gotta ask, because you guys announced an iOS game, and obviously you did Lazer Mazer, so that was an AR game. So you're going back to that now with this, and it said it's compatible with the VR, so it's crossplay. Is that coming out this year soon?
So we actually thought that we were going to have it done by summer, and then beta testing just showed that we've got a lot more. We're coming to iOS only for now. And the thing is that because you played Lazer Mazer, you remember the mechanic of that, where you actually like are physically moving around your space.
Yes.
With the iOS game, I'm actually holding my phone. Here, I'll imagine I'm holding my phone with my other hand, but you're looking at your phone, and then you actually physically putt. And so you can hold it up, you can look around, and it works really well. It's got basically the phone we're using AR Kit under the hood for full like 6-off tracking, so you can actually walk around your space and like never warp anywhere if you had a big space, and you would totally just like play the course much like Lazer Mazer was. But yeah, it was just a simpler mechanic, and one of the things that we learned from Lazer Mazer was that it had I won't go too deep into it because I know a lot of people haven't played it, but it has a locking mechanic so that you could walk to the end of your room, and if you're on a space, you just hold the lock button, turn around, keep going. Still, though, when you were playing in a smaller space, it tended to lose that sense of like physicality, just because you were constantly having to like hold that lock button and think about it just a little bit. So Walkabout actually started as a phone game, so it was working fully in that mode even before it started, and then it was actually the Indiecade after you guys were there and saw Lazer Mazer. That's when I had it, and I was like, the Quest 1 had just come out, so I got it running really quick because it was already a mobile game, so it was already optimized. Showed it to the Oculus folks, and then they were like, yeah, finish it up and bring it over, basically. So that was, literally all that kind of came out through that one Indiecade where you guys, played it for the first time.
Because this game actually even has a little bit of that, where you have to walk. Because when you go into the diorama mode and you're big, you can't fly. So like, luckily, like I play in my garage so that I can have like a really big space. So whenever I want to mess with these guys and get huge, I'll like walk to one side of the garage first, then I'll get huge, so then I can get as close into the map as you can. Have you guys thought about letting us fly around with our giant heads, or is that just too obnoxious, you think, for other people? Is that going to be...
I guess it's possible. I think that we've kind of tried to keep things from going too crazy with that, we call it God mode. Just because at that point you're so big, we have to optimize like everything to an inch of its life because you're seeing the entire course at once.
Okay, sure.
So part of it is also that. And because we're focusing on so many different headsets, like we always have to get it to run on some of the lower spec hardware. So PSVR 2 doesn't have an issue running all those things, but there's a lot of headsets out there that we're just constantly, just optimizing.
With so you guys have a lot of courses, and some of them are obviously like original creations, but then also like you have like Labyrinth and all of these, Mist, like other IPs. Is that you guys like being like, what would be good for us to adapt? Let's go try and get this license so we can make this. I mean, I'm assuming like the Jules Verne stuff might be public domain at this point, but like, how does that work? And then simultaneously, do you have people reaching out to you? Because we talk about all the time, like, oh my god, like, what if there was a Marvel level or a Zelda level, which is about like Hyrule? Like, do you like, what is the potential that you think there is for like even bigger IPs, and do you have people reaching out to you about that stuff?
So it goes both ways. We've reached out to some people reach out to us. I think that for us, the big thing, at least we are starting to think about some, doing some partnerships. Like we did the Fox Hunt with Alon Lee, the Exploding Kittens creator, and he did that extra Fox Hunt for Laser Lair. So we are thinking about some smaller things, but when it's a course, so much of it comes down to we generally need sort of an environment. We need a world that you want to go to. So that's usually one of the number one things that we're looking for. But then I would absolutely love to do some of those bigger, Marvel, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings. Like there's there's so many of those huge IPs that we've absolutely talked about. It's just, I will say that right now in the VR space, it's tough just because all of the VR market is such a teeny tiny fraction of the overall gaming market. And because these are also add-ons, it's not like it's a whole game. Like if we were going to do a dedicated game that was going to be a Walkabout, whatever, that would probably be more possible for one of those really, really big IPs. But part of us also wants to make sure that it's really nice to keep it all in one thing. We'll keep adding to it, because then you don't have to worry. Oh, are you on Walkabout 1 or Walkabout 2 or Walkabout, whatever. But and just having dealt with a lot of those, because like you mentioned, I come from the film world, so just having dealt with some of those big IPs and everything, it's a very different process, and I absolutely feel like we're about ready to make a bigger move like that. But it's still yeah, it's definitely just a different thing that we've done. And so many of the partners that we've done so far, so especially like Labyrinth, Mist, and Meow Wolf coming out next, all of those are independent. Jim Henson was independent. The Cyan guys are all still just sort of like independently owned, and it's so much easier to work with folks like that because you can.
Yeah.
It was actually the conversation with the conversation with the folks at Cyan was honestly one of the best meetings I've ever had when we first pitched it, because it was sort of like we were kind of doing introductions, and they're just sort of like, "As hi, yes, and the answer is yes," like within the first 30 seconds, because they had been playing the game, and I grew up with Myst, so that was just sort of like the best situation. So
that's awesome.
Anyways, man. We love licensing. We want to do more of them, but it's also fun to do some original stuff as well. So we just like to keep that mix.
That's awesome. We're a big fan of just like how the game feels like an older game. Like, I mean, all the DLC is just maps, and like I'm so happy to be like, yeah, like $3, $4, like $5 a map. Like, absolutely, it's amazing. Like, you guys like seeing that you're not stuck having to do like season passes or microtransactions for everything so far. At least like it's awesome. Even though we keep talking about like, but if they did come out with a way to like buy like cosmetics, we're like, yeah, I'd probably do that immediately. I would buy anything in this game right now.
I had a quick. So we play. You know, we've been playing a lot, right? So we whenever we play, we always trying to figure out, is there a way to get a hole in one, right? And my question is, do you design the hole with an idea towards what could be a hole in one, or do you specifically design it so that it's almost impossible to get a hole in one? Like, are there some holes you say like, yeah, let's give them a hole in one chance, and some holes you say, nah?
I would say that probably about half the holes are like reasonably hole in oneable. Like, you look at it and you're like, okay, if I bounce, maybe you have to bounce twice off of something. Like, it feels like, okay, there's a path here. Probably the other half of them are ones that the community comes up with some crazy trick shots where they're looking at rocks like this, and that rock angles up. If I just hit it backwards, then now I'm airborne and I can do whatever I want. So that was actually even something that the original game didn't have collisions on every single object, and it took a little while for us to optimize everything to the point that now literally like I can bounce off of any single thing that I want basically, and just it'll all keep every single thing is collidable. But that was something that was added probably about a year after launch. We just went back in and added colliders to everything because people were starting to do those trick shots and realizing that was sort of a mini game in and of itself.
Except player balls, which we really like as a decision. Was that like a hardware limitation, or did you say like, oh, people are going to be frustrated already, just like they sometimes get when they play mini golf, so I don't want people screwing each other over by knocking their balls out of the way?
Honestly, it kind of started as a bit of frankly a bit of a tech thing, because we're running physics in a very specific way, and getting physics collisions in real time and knowing what all can interact, it's a bit of a nightmare. Yeah. But it also, I do kind of like that you can play your game, and again, we're doing. Even the fact that you can swing through, the putter can go right through a rock. You don't have to worry about that. Let's just kind of use the medium and kind of, It's funny because even when I go to play real mini golf, when the putter doesn't automatically, like change height,
the changing height thing is so clutch.
Yeah. You're like, why is the physics of this world like this?
You bounce off the rug or off the carpet, and it's like, why isn't it working?
Have you been like, because you've been making this game, has it like pushed you to be like, I need to go play mini golf more to like understand like how to do level design, or anything? Like the fact that you just even are like doing mini golf? Are you playing mini golf?
Or are you just so overloaded with mini golf that you're just like, I don't want to play in real life?
There's a lot of mini golf in my life right now. I think probably more than just about anyone in the world. I'm probably it's up there. I bet I'm in the top 10 folks of people just like living mini golf at the moment. But we've been to some, and we'll absolutely, like, I'll take the kids out sometime if we're ever on vacation. We've done a couple of just like meetups with like our crew because we're a hybrid studio, mostly remote. But if folks come into town, like every once in a while, we've done it a couple of times where we'll go to like Peter Pan here in Austin or something. So it's, I definitely feel like we've kind of used that real life mini golf as a springboard. But in some ways, I kind of like that we don't have some of the restrictions. Like every time you go to a real life mini golf place, just like, oh, there's rocks on the ground, or there's little leaves that you got to clear out of the way, or there's little dings and all that sort of stuff. Maybe the ball doesn't quite bounce off. So I kind of feel like VR in some ways is almost like the ideal way to do it, just because it's sort of like sands off, you know. You don't have to worry that someone spilled a Coke there and all of a sudden there's a sticky spot, although that's a good course idea I want to steal. So, maybe that'll
count. 1,000%. It's awesome. I mean, it's also, like perfect every single time we come in.
Even including the price of the headset, it's cheaper with the amount of games of mini golf I've played at this point than it would be to go in. I would spend a lot more money playing real mini golf at this point, even including... So I know you guys are going to announce at some point at the end of the year 2024 roadmap, I think. You said, so you might not be able to answer this, but I'm curious, because you have so many maps now. I mean, it's, especially if you include the hard modes, I think there's 44 like playable courses, I think.
Oh, yeah. We're 22 right now.
Yeah. So have you thought about doing any kind of a like world tour mode where like you pick 3 different maps and then it like you do like, you know, 6 or 3 holes here if you're doing like a 9 and then it goes to the next map? Have you ever thought about doing like a thing where you rotate between courses?
A lot. So that's one that several people have asked for. I can't say for certain what's going to happen because frankly, we've kind of spent the last couple of years. We've obviously been adding a lot of stuff to it, as well as like Laser Lair, new mechanics. Meow Wolf's going to have a lot going on in it. I feel like we're just now getting to the point where because this was largely a solo developed game, we've kind of spent the last couple of years paying off the tech debt. Where I just did a bunch of if statements, like the code was just really freaking ugly under the hood. And now that we've got a larger team, we really had to refactor a lot of stuff. We had to build things. So we're just now getting to the point where it's going to be possible really soon for us to kind of start like doing more interesting things, because before it was like literally hard coded, like every course had to have 18 holes and it was just a very like ironclad thing. But now that we've sort of like programmed things in a more flexible way, we can start doing more with other game modes and other ways of playing, and possibly something like stitching some different courses together to give you a best of. But yeah, so like that's on the list of things we'd like to try basically.
We're in your feedback requests on the Discord, where you know everyone's always wants like a way to organize the balls. Although it is fun, like having like almost 400 balls like just bouncing around in there every time the new balls come in, and just start filling it up even farther.
Yeah, we joke that when everyone's asking for the asking for a way to sort them, and all we're going to do is just give them pinball flippers, and that will be it.
Oh my god. I love that.
What would you say if, since I guess 2020 when you started developing, what would you say is like the most challenging part that you encountered in the last maybe 4 years?
I mean, I think that just getting, for me personally, I think a lot of it has been, I've worked with teams before, but games were always sort of like the thing that I kind of started doing mostly on the side, because I liked doing the hands-on stuff. And so I think there was a big learning gap for me, because coming from the animation world, we have a way of doing things that I think we definitely do things a little different than most other game studios would ever think to do them. But at the same time, I think there was also just a lot of learning that had to be done for me in terms of just like the language of game development. And frankly, we're also self-publishing, so a lot of that has also come up of just sort of like learning how to publish a game alongside, basically a live service game, essentially.
Have you had any? I mean, this game is, especially in the world of we've talked about how VR is a niche within gaming, but like this is one of the projects that I think is like consistently showing that like there is a lot of potential in VR. Surely, if you're self-publishing, like have you had people reach out to you about like becoming the publisher for this game? Is that something you'd even want to do?
I mean, I think that
as much as you can talk about that.
I think that we've been able to do a lot of what we do because of our self-publishing, and frankly, a lot of the things that a publisher would add is because normally a game studio only releases one game every 2, 3, maybe even 4 years, and so it's impossible for them to really have that in-house. We've been putting out a new course once every 6 weeks, which is a totally new build. Amazing. There's bug fixes. There's a lot of other just like tech improvements that come alongside a new course, along with all of the, just the, getting the word out, community management, all that sort of stuff. So I think that in some ways, if we had an external publisher, we would probably not be able to move as quickly or as freely. Because it's just like, the bigger the boat is, the slower it turns. And we're already at a size now where we're not able to do stuff as nimbly as we used to, but at the same time, there's no way we could be doing the volume of content that we're doing back when we were, just a handful of people. So that's sort of like the trade. And I do think we're at a really happy size right now where we're able to do a lot of stuff, but we're not so big that we can't adapt and we can't sort of like make, needed late in the game changes on stuff.
That's awesome. I'm so happy to hear that. Like, you're not like this is working out for you, and not like, oh no, we need a publisher because we need to grow, and we're not going to be able to get the funds or whatever it may be. Like, it's great to hear like you guys are able to like, this is perfect for you guys. Yeah.
I mean, in some ways, like, yes, this is my first time dealing with something like this in the game space, but coming from the film world, and like, I've been dealing with those big studios for, in so many different ways for so long that like, nothing against like anyone who kind of works within that system. It is hard, and you spend so much of your time just building consensus and trying to get people on board, and so little of your time actually doing the thing. Like, literally, like 70% of the time you're pitching, you're selling, you're trying to get it greenlit. You only end up spending a little chunk of time actually making the thing that you're want to be doing. So that's been the nice thing. I think the best thing for me is just being able to get in. We've got an idea, like, let's just rip it open and just do it. And that feels so good after having spent literally 10 years in development on a bunch of different feature projects. Just like, it's so slow, and it's nice to just get in and just like make something. So
that's awesome. With VR, and again, talking about the size of it within gaming, there's been such a huge promise. I was thinking to myself as I was getting in the elevator coming up to my apartment today, I was like, someone let Mark Zuckerberg know this interview is happening, because he'd love to know that like we're utilizing VR in this way. Do you think that VR is ever going to have its moment where it blows up and it is something that everyone is using for a bunch of different reasons? Or do you think that what VR is today is kind of what it always will be? Like, where do you see the trajectory of that?
I mean, I definitely see, like, as these get lighter and UI gets better, and I mean, like, really the number one thing right now is just friction. Whether it's the battery life or whether it's just like we don't have ways of quickly sending each other stuff. We don't have ways of quickly jumping in together. I mean, that was one of the reasons for the room system that we did here, is like, just make it stupid simple and not have to worry about friending people or worried about, there's so much friction just to getting the headset on, getting people into it, that we just wanted everything to be as frictionless as possible. So I think that once it becomes easier, again, we hop in and we'll do meetings in VR constantly. We do a lot of our design work in Gravity Sketch, and the designers are all spread out across the U.S. We can all meet up in a room, and we're literally working on the level at the same time, which is something that you can't even do like in a regular, like you can't even do that in Blender or Maya or Max or anything. So it's so amazing what you can do with it. So I think that it's absolutely gonna reach that point. It feels like there's so many steps written here and there. I don't know what form it's going to take when that arrives. But I think it's also going to be just like, it's going to slowly build, and it's going to be, it's going to ebb and flow. But I do think that it's going to get there, and that this is going to become one of the main ways that people are, you won't have screens in your house anymore.
This game does something that this to me is the VR game that needs to be played. It's the first VR game I've played, and I bought like a lot of the PlayStation VR games when this came out, the PSVR 2. This is the first game where I'm like, you have to play this game. I mean, Alex wasn't planning on getting the PSVR 2. He had an Oculus 1, and when I found out that it was cross-compatible, I knew that if I got him to play one match with me, that was it. And he did, and then he went out and bought a PSVR 2 two days later just for this game.
He didn't buy one. I gifted him one. Him one, remember?
Yeah, I had to lie to my wife about buying this.
We need to send this to Sony and to Meta because we've anecdotally heard stories like that, but no one would ever think like, oh yeah, the mini golf is like it's system sellers. Like no, really?
I
have a friend who works
I played one course. I played one course with Chris, and I said, I'm selling this Oculus One and getting a PSVR 2 because I wanted to play more of the courses because it didn't support it on the first one.
Yeah.
So I went out, I bought it, and I have this story where I tried to get it through the window well in my basement because I didn't want my wife to know that I had purchased this thing. And I only have this for this game. I only have my PSVR 2 for Walkabout Mini Golf. So
we still haven't played a single
I have not
VR
played
game.
any other game. And it's just the best VR game I've ever played. I mean,
I've
I
got
still
almost
say it's the
100
best game
hours
I've played all year. Huh?
I've got almost 100 hours in this already, and I'm
Oh,
not
yeah,
like
100%.
I still feel like I'm scratching the surface because we're playing hard courses, and I'm like, oh, we haven't even played the full 18 here yet. Like I still haven't even seen, like we went in, we did the fox hunts, but we didn't actually play all the courses yet. When we were collecting the clubs. It's just this is like to me this is like Wii Sports for the Wii. Like this is like if you have a VR headset,
You have to get this
you
game.
have to play this game.
Yep.
My friend who works at he was doing contract work for Oculus. He didn't work there like permanently, but he hadn't checked this out. And I was like, "You haven't done it yet?" And he was like, "Oh, well, it's mini golf. Like I don't know if I really." I was like, "Go download it." And he got in, and within 5 minutes, he was like, "Oh my god." He was like, "I see." He was like, "I get it immediately." He was like, "I get it."
Yeah.
And then he started playing it. He's like, "It does everything you would want it to do, and all of these other things that you didn't think of. It's so good. Everything is so precise and so clever, and it's one of the few games that I'm not running into a problem where I'm like, oh, the game screwed up, like the game glitched, and especially in VR where you kind of expect a little bit of jankiness. This is like one of the smoothest games that I've played this year, like by far. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, and
PlayStation-
again, a lot
great.
of time was spent really nailing it. I think that there's something about that. People have talked about it, like the one-to-one movement in VR is so important because yes, you think like, oh, I
Yes.
want to do all these impossible things, and yes, you do, but there's something that's so satisfying about being able to do something with your body. Like I remember getting the CV1 and not having the hand-tracked controllers, and when the controllers first came out, I was like, that seems kind of gimmicky. Like I don't think that's really going to add anything. And I kind of fought it for a little while until you get in there and it's like, oh my god, this is half the experience. Like just being able to physically interact with your hands is like it literally is half of the experience. So yeah, a lot of those things that I think that even I was skeptical about, that I just wish that there was a better way to get people to try and experience some of those things, because a lot of people are still like, oh yeah, I tried VR. And when they say that, they meant like, oh, it's one of the phones that clipped into the headset that was like free off, that was like from 10 years ago or something like
Google,
that. And there's still a lot of that. I just wished that like there was an easy way for everyone to try it out and
Nintendo Labo.
get a sense.
Just become friends with Chris, and he'll badger you until you buy one, and then you go.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. I did not. The second this game came out on PlayStation in May, till today, there hasn't been an episode of this podcast where I have not talked about this game.
Yeah.
Which is just like every week I'm like, I have something new to talk about with this game. It's pretty incredible, and I'm glad to hear that the iOS version is what we kind of guessed it might be, and not like a mixed reality thing, because I'm hoping that means that you're not doing a mixed reality thing for the Quest, because if you do, then I'm going to have to go buy a Quest just so I can play whatever mixed reality thing comes out in this, because that is the one thing that the PlayStation doesn't have on their VR. Is like because it's it's the black and white pass through. But
I'm really curious to see where mixed reality goes, and I feel like there's absolutely some really cool like uses of that. It feels like it's so nascent right now that it's going to take some time to really figure out what exactly like everyone's going to be using mixed reality for. But it is super, super cool. So
being able to do a mixed reality version of this game, or like map that take advantage of that, like is very cool to think about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I have some questions from the audience here before. I don't know.
Yeah,
what
we've
time
already
you're heading
taken up, I think, a bit more of your time than planned. But...
I can probably do about 10 more minutes, and then I'm going to have to check in on the kids.
Awesome.
These are real quick from Slater in the chat. We have, what's the biggest limitation VR hardware has imposed on development thus far, perhaps other than putting more assets on a level?
I mean, it's funny. The whole time I was like, "Oh, assets!" Just like the amount of polygons you can render. Just the fact that you got to do everything at 90 frames per second on what is essentially mobile phone hardware is definitely the biggest one. I would say that a lot of something about being in VR. A lot of times, it's so physical that a lot of times you think like, oh, this is totally going to work because in any other game it would work. But you don't realize that like, oh, when you're actually standing there doing it, it doesn't feel good, or it doesn't quite have like. I mean, I think that even like the counterexample to that is Upside Down, which there were also some people who really like when we released that one and people were putting on the ceiling and on the walls. Like there was some that was the most hate that we've ever gotten in a single day.
Really? We're just laughing the whole time. We think it's the funniest thing in the world.
It's the funniest thing in the world. I loved it.
When Alice is like at the wall and his club is like 2 inches long, it's
amazing.
Yeah. Well, and I think that a lot of there were so many folks who had been playing and we had never done anything like that. And I think we did something like that, and it was just sort of like people weren't ready for us to go that weird with it, I think. But it is one of those things that I think that's maybe kind of like the counterexample to that, where certain things that are in VR, like just the fact that like we have to make sure that you've got room to stand physically. That some things that if you were doing any other golf game, you would never worry about what happens when the ball goes under that little thing. It's like, oh no, we just can't. There's a lot of those things that you just have to treat it as if you were designing a real life place. Is probably one of the other big things of just the fact that it's VR.
Slater's other question: what's your McDonald's order?
Ooh.
If you go.
If you
go to McDonald's.
/ favorite fast food place if you're not a McDonald's fan.
Yeah.
Well, I'm in Austin, so down here we've got Whataburger.
Whataburger.
It's probably the thing.
Dude. Yes. So, I love Whataburger.
That's probably I'd probably go Whataburger is probably the one that we go to most down here.
Someone's visiting Texas for the first time, they're having their first Whataburger, what should their go-to be? What should they go for first?
I don't even know. I mean, if you're coming to Texas, get barbecue. I think that's the first thing. Like,
don't go to Whataburger.
Get there.
Yeah, I mean, not. It's great and all, but like, no, go. Yeah. There's like, I would almost say that barbecue is more like our fast food down here, because if you're almost paying the same thing. Like, yeah, you could get brisket for like $1 more. So just do that. I'm gonna be really bougie and say that.
Huh?
But it's not bougie. It's very affordable down there. They just get a cow for like 5 cents. Great. No, the brisket in Austin is. The barbecue in general is fantastic.
Yeah.
Those are all the audience questions. Do you guys have any other last minute things?
What are the chances for multiplayer for a sort of like vote to end match option or something like that? Because right now we have a lot of stupid fingers, which is what I like to call them, where we'll open up a level and then we'll hit the wrong thing. Because we used to always play full 18s, and now we do the 9s. Because what's nice with the 9s is you screw up, and then it's not as big of a deal, right? You're not like, I'm off for the rest of the match. So then, if
you're playing with a big group, like 18 holes with a group of 4 or 5 or even more, that can be a full hour.
Yeah.
Especially if people aren't great at the game, I would say as well. So but no, we no promises on when something like that will come out, but we have it on the roadmap to add. We need to add some architecture for an actual voting system. But once we have like a voting system in place, there's a lot that we could do. Which it'd be voting to end the match, like even like a mulligan, like someone's controller just like drops on the floor or something and they hit the ball. Like there's a lot of things that we could do that just needs that. And like I was saying earlier, that's one of those bits of architecture that is just now starting to become possible that we can, you know, more quickly iterate and come up with those things that we're not just having to bolt it into a really kind of kludgy system.
Oh, so you could even then do different game modes where, like, you could play a tally system for courses, right? Like, instead of, let's say you're playing 9 holes, whoever wins on the hole gets a point, kind of a thing, instead of playing for overall score.
Like match scoring is absolutely something that we've talked about as well. Yeah, match scoring, because if you have one bad hole, or like if you just like can't get this one tee shot right, it could like wreck your round. So yeah, match scoring is high up there. There's been a lot of requests for, I think speed running would be super fun. There's a group right now so we actually changed it so when you go into practice mode right now, it used to just after you completed a hole, it would kick you back to God mode. We made it so it auto-advanced to the next hole just because there's a group of people that do speed running, but they just use the practice mode because then they can still start at the same time and go together. So like that was like one of our little hacks that we couldn't quickly support it in an easy way, but that was at least a way that we can give them something that would work a lot better. So
that's cool.
Something I talk about is like, because this is a game that you're basically playing yourself. Like I'll sometimes play alone. I'll just put on a podcast in one ear and then I'll just play. If there was something like Ghost Data, like racing games, so that, because I can see obviously what my best overall score on a course is. But what's the feasibility of there? Because this is probably a major technical hurdle of like how racing games save your Ghost Data. What is the feasibility of a course saving your Ghost Data so that I could play against the best version of myself, so I could actually see what I did when I got that best score and then play against them?
Yeah. That would be super cool. We've definitely talked, I mean, because essentially that's what we're doing with the instant replay. Is basically
so we're saving the instant replays then, I guess.
Yeah, it would just be having to save all those and string them together. So again, all these things, no promises that any of these things are coming, but we're absolutely sort of like, we're on the exact same page, because I agree that being able to play against yourself, or even being able to play, like, you play a round, and then, you know, if you weren't able to actually get in there with him, but he could send you his round.
Asymmetrically?
Like asymmetric would be super fun, too.
That's like Super Stickman Golf on the phone. That was one of my favorite
but that's
iOS
so cool to send you my best round.
That would be so cool.
And you just
that
play
would
against
be awesome.
That's really cool.
Whenever we talk about this,
it's like literally the people with the person with the top score, like you could actually like play against them to see how.
That is really
because if you haven't gotten in, have you guys gotten in with any of like the Discord players or any of like the pro players at all?
Not yet.
We're too afraid.
I'm still garbage. I'm garbage right now.
Like you said, that it's hop onto a game on the Discord, just like even one of the scheduled games or whatever, because just seeing how some of those people play a hole, like it's not like
Quick Match has been good for that.
Yeah, it's great for that. Quick Match, you never know quite who you're going to get matched up with.
True.
But on the Discord, so many of the pros hang out there that
interesting.
You can like they'll even talk like, oh, hit this spot right here at like a medium speed, and your ball will just like bounce into the hole. Like they've got so many things just dialed in. And again, like you said, it's not like you're playing against yourself. So people have been really nice about just showing what they're doing, and if you play with someone, you're gonna see what they do anyway. So it's not like it's a trade secret or something like that. So, but yeah, check that out because it's super fun to see how people do that. If you want to, or you do that and don't tell all of them, and then you can just like smoke them the next time.
Not me. I'm
that's what I told my friend. I said just go into Quick Match, because when I first started, I did Quick Match, and people would show me, like, as I'm going through the course, they would be like, "Oh, do this, do this, do this," and I was learning much faster how to get through the course and like what kind of stuff to do. But the game so far, from what I've seen, is one of the like more positive communities that I've ever played in. I haven't run into any problems here. Everyone's been really nice because everyone just wants to play mini golf. It's great. Yeah,
it's even if you just look at the area that we're standing in, like it's not exactly super aggro sort of vibe that we're going for.
One of the first times we actually played, my girlfriend was she loved the kayak VR game, and I put her. She played actually against Christian's partner, and they did Zen Garden on the first courses. Is that what I don't know the name of it? The one with
Cherry Blossom, probably.
And she just decided to sit under the waterfall for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, they both just
Like,
went over the waterfall and stopped playing.
So funny.
Uh-huh.
So funny. On a scale of 1 to
I've
10,
done. I mean,
Lucas.
a lot of times we'll do that as well, and we'll just like if I'm playing one-on-one, like we'll do our one-on-ones in there, and then at the end of the match, it's like, oh, we're not gonna like we don't have time to play another one, but let's just like hang out and chat. I mean, just like we're doing, like we're not playing the game,
Yeah.
but just the fact
Yeah.
that we can see each other, it's better than being on better than being on a Zoom call. I would say 90% of the time.
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah. So
I'm trying to think
awesome.
of a way we can
All right,
do
man.
this for every episode of the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, just
Yeah.
hop in. You're welcome to.
Hop in.
So, yeah,
Well,
cool.
All right.
This
Well, yeah,
was
well,
great.
thank you so much for
Well,
having
thanks
me.
yeah, thank you so
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, yeah.
This is the
Cheers,
best thing
have
I've
a
ever
good one.
done.
much. Yeah, you too. Have a great weekend.
All right. There he goes.
There he goes.
Amazing. Amazing.
Tuna, why don't you come on
That
back
was
in?
the best thing we've ever done. Holy shit.
That's
Yeah, that was awesome.
100%.
I
That
loved
was
it.
amazing.